HR leaders, what's on your mind these days? Is it AI? Is it the economy? The talent market? Remote work? Retention? DEI? Pay transparency? New laws? Our 2024 Workplace Trends Report outlines how HR leaders are thinking about these challenges and what they believe will help their organizations overcome them. Want to find out what they said? Head on over to peoplemanagingpeople.com/Workplace Trends 2024 and download the report to find out.
I think leadership is influence. Leadership is not a title. I think leadership is, I can sum it up an equation. Humility plus vulnerability plus curiosity equals leadership.
Welcome to the People Managing People podcast. We're on a mission to build a better world of work and to help you create happy, healthy, and productive workplaces. I'm your host, Tim Reitsma. When was the last time you gave vague instructions? Was there a miscommunication? Or perhaps you received vague instructions? How did you feel about that? I know for me, when clear expectations aren't set, I can feel frustrated, but also excited. I get excited with the creative freedom, but if there's something that I'm missing and it comes up at the end of a project or a task, oh boy, I can feel frustrated and even confused. Casey Jacox, author of Win the Relationship, Not the Deal, leadership coach and consultant to high-performing teams, unpacks the power of setting clear expectations. He shares with us his simple TED framework and gives practical insights through great story. I hope I clearly set your expectations in this intro for an amazing podcast. Stay tuned for a fun conversation with Casey. Casey, welcome to the People Managing People podcast. We met virtually randomly a few weeks or a couple months ago now through our hosting site Buzzsprout, and I think developed and are developing a great friendship and relationship out of this. So thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, I'm honored to be here, Tim. And I'm not going to say randomly, I'm going to say serendipitously. It happened for a reason.
Yes, definitely. And you were gracious enough to host me on your podcast, the Quarterback Dadcast. And so for those who are listening, you got to check out Casey and his show. It's a phenomenal show, as well as, we're going to talk a little bit about your book, specifically around setting expectations. And the book is called Win the Relationship, Not the Deal. I was telling Casey, I think it's probably, or it is, not even probably, it is one of the best reads I've done this year. And I've read a ton of books. It is straightforward, no nonsense. It is a guide for not just sales, but also how to live your life, how to lead, how to be a good human. And so, yeah, thanks again for coming on. And we're going to be talking about, as leaders, we need to set expectations. But before we get into it, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about what you're up to.
For one, I'm blushing. I know people can't see me, but I'm like, I can't believe, there's a sign behind me that says believe, that's from the great Ted Lasso. There's also a sign that says be a goldfish, which is having a short memory when things don't go right, flush it, and the word believe is something I'm really, really, really passionate about because it's a great way to start the day. I know I believe what I do matters. It gives me strength, gives me positivity, gives me clarity, gets my mind right. It gives me confidence to do anything I want to do because I know I'm doing it from a heart of service, of help, I want to be curious. And so I guess the quick introduction, 25-year corporate guy, business development, sales leadership, executive leadership, left in March of 2019, cleared my mind, left on great terms with Kforce, a staffing and consulting company in the United States, and knew I wanted to write a book, knew I wanted to start a podcast. And the next thing I know, I did that. And then a year later, coaching found me. And I did not raise my hand and say, I want to be a business and leadership coach and a growth coach. And I coach my kids. I've coached sports, former college athlete. I've been in coaching environments, but I'm not like a quote unquote, I didn't go to coaching school. And now I'm coaching multiple industries, from wealth management to marketing to sales to golf, the golfing industry. TaylorMade's a customer of mine. And it's so fun because I'm not making it up. I teach what's called a boomerang mindset, meaning if we throw enough boomerangs of service, serving others, that boomerang's going to come back to you if you do it right. And it's definitely different than having a corporate job where things got done for you. And now I'm everything from the custodian services to the front desk to compensation to AR, AP, but to have an impact on people's lives, to share my own experience, my own failure that helps hopefully shorten the learning curve from other people is an amazing feeling. And that's what really jacks me up every day to go serve and meet and connect with people around the world.
I love it. Thanks for that. And I love to hear your passion for what you do and for your craft. And for those who are listening, we will definitely be putting in the show notes. Head to peoplemanagepeople.com and we'll have all the links to reach out to Casey. But before we get going, we're going to talk about, as leaders, we need to set expectations. But I've always loved to ask my guests 2 questions. First question, what does it mean to be a leader?
I think leadership is influence. Leadership is not a title. I think leadership is, I can sum it up in an equation. Humility plus vulnerability plus curiosity equals leadership.
I love that.
Yeah, so humility plus vulnerability plus curiosity equals leadership. I think the best leaders I've ever been around are so crystal clear with those 3 characteristics.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's one of the reasons why we get along so well is, we share the same core values, some of the values, curiosity being one of them. Vulnerability is, I think is something we need to lean into. I think we often put up that facade and everything's okay, whereas, well, if it's not okay, let's just own it and not try to power through. And then humility, right? We don't know all the right answers. Let's go ask for help. Let's go ask for support. Admit your failures. Admit when you're wrong. It's powerful. It makes us human.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it keeps us in this growth mindset. It keeps us, because when we learn something and you give space to realize that we're all flawed, even the elite people in the world, whether you're a right wing for the Canucks or a center for the Kraken, or no matter what it is, they all have gaps. No one's perfect. And the sooner you just embrace that, life becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. The 3 little words, I don't know, but then follow it up with, but I'll figure it out, or I'll seek some answers. I'll seek advice, right? If you just stop with, I don't know, there's more to it. Then we need to be pushing more into the, well, I'll help you figure it out, which then leads into the curiosity piece, which then leads into the vulnerability piece. It all ties together. I love that. The second question I always ask people, and I didn't actually ask you this or prep you for this before we hit record. Our purpose here at People Manage People is to build a better world of work. When you hear that phrase, build a better world of work, what comes to mind?
Build a better world of work to me means clarity. It means inspiration. It means purpose. It means no matter what role you have inside an organization, a leader is helping provide that belief or that meaning around, hey, without this job, we're in trouble. And I think it's when leaders can, no matter what role it is, I used to make a big deal about a person at the front desk when I was in corporate, like, you're the face. Like when someone walks in our office, the first expectation they have is you. Now they might end up meeting with me or another leader in our company, but how you show up, how you make them feel is going to set the tone for how their experience is with us. Just like whether it's a coffee shop, whether it's a flight, no matter what it is. So I think for me, building a better work leaders, if you create that clarity, if you create that purpose and meaning for every single job, I mean, your culture is going to be dialed, I believe.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story once of, I think it was a podcast years ago, and there was talking about a story about a janitor at a school. Well, why aren't you more than just a janitor at a school? And the person said, well, but I'm the janitor of the school. I need to keep this place clean and safe for students. That's what I need to do every single day. And that to me was just like an aha moment. It's not this striving for this corporate leadership job. And some people strive for that, and that's awesome. But every job matters. And finding purpose in that job where, if the garbage cans overflow, it's not going to be safe. If the washrooms are dirty, it's not going to be safe. I need to keep these kids safe. And I love that. I just love that purpose-filled role. And when we do this in our organizations, every job matters. We will have a better world of work. We're then treating people as humans with purpose rather than just numbers on a spreadsheet. I love it. And I think it ties nicely in with our topic today about setting expectations. And I don't know, when I hear that word expectation, it almost kind of sends me back a little bit of, I don't know, there's just some negative connotation with that word. So I don't know why that comes up for me. I'm not sure if it comes up for you, if you've heard that before, if you're listening and saying, okay, expectations, how do I set expectations in a way that is meaningful, that drives performance? Well, let's start here. Why do we need to set expectations?
I think there's expectations are vital. In my opinion, that's what helped me win people, because they always knew where they stood internally or externally. And it provides clarity for what's going to happen. I think there's also something that's called agreements. So people can set expectations, but if we don't create agreements, then there's usually a gap, right? And so I think we were joking before we decided to record, but recently I was on an airline, I'm not going to name them, but long flight. And the pilots, surprisingly, and I love this airline, they did not say one thing to us, which I thought was kind of odd. Go across the entire country. We land early, and I'm a gold with this airline, and I don't even shop. I just book flights with them because I know I usually get good service. I got the nice special orange tag that means my bag's going to come out early. All these things. I get the, hey, if you book with us, you're going to give us the frequent flyer, blah, 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 whatever. And all of a sudden, this one bad expectation unraveled all these emotions that were somewhere inside me. So we have a long flight. We land 35 minutes early, sit on the tarmac. Really not a lot of communication. We start, we stop, we start, we stop, we start, we stop. If the pilots would have said in the very beginning, hey, we're going to get in early, and there's a good chance because of airport construction, we might be delayed getting to the gate. Now my expectations are set. I know what's coming, versus not talking doesn't help anybody. Right. And so now then I go to my bag, and now I'm in a different part of our local airport in Seattle, where it's even further away than I usually have to go to get my bag. And I wait another 40 minutes. So a 35-minute early, which I was in a great mood, to now I'm almost 2 hours post. Now I'm late. Now I'm like irritated, frustrated. I'm like, what? And to me, all that could be solved with just a little communication and expectations up front from the airline, that people don't slow down to think about the importance of the experience of customers have or clients have. Now, maybe that story is resonating with people internally. Tim, I shared with you early in my career, I had a leader who wanted me to, at the time I was servicing 2 different industries. And his idea was, I want you to go all in on one. And at the time I was like, well, I'm diversified in both. My business is mixed. So if one dips, we're going to be okay. And my current boss at the time said, Casey, it's all right that, I agree with you. We'll keep going down that path. And then his boss says, no, I want Casey to go all in on this one set of customers. And I was maybe a little bit immature at the time, but I was like, no, that doesn't make sense. And again, expectations weren't clear. They weren't set. From the leader, the high level leader, to my boss down to me, there was a gap in communication. So and my boss at the time would just keep telling me what I wanted to hear, because he didn't know how to deal with difficult conversations. So instead, the VP flies in, hey, Casey, got a second? He takes me in the conference room. He goes, hey, you're going to be working today to transition this account with these 2 people in your office, and it's theirs going forward. And we need you to support it. I'm like, what? Like, how did that happen? Because like my boss told me that it wasn't going to happen like that and so like now I'm in like defense mode. I'm in like what the F mode, I'm in a fixed mindset, versus if it would have just been clearly communicated to me, I might not have liked it, but to be surprised, to be caught off guard. No, so now I'm going to waste a day emotionally because I'm not my best version of me. And again, leaders, we have complete control over that. So if you're going to make a difficult decision, if you're going to have to, do something for the business that maybe the sales team, whatever role he or she might not see, set expectations, provide clarity on the why, not just because dad said so, go to your room, right? I think when we provide clarity and slow down a little bit, we all can go faster from a leadership perspective, from a producer perspective, any role in those companies. So anyway, hope those couple stories at least gave some thoughts on my passion around expectation management.
Well, it resonates so much with me, and I'm guilty of it in my career, of saying to my team, hey, we're going to pivot. We're going to go left. My team has, early on in my career went, okay, that doesn't make sense. Or why are you restructuring the team? Or why are we doing things like this? Well, when we pause and clearly communicate, okay, this is what's happening. This is why we need to do it. People still might not understand or be on board, but we got to give all that information. A story just pops in. I was talking with a friend recently who's, their company set their performance goals, their financial goals for the year. And it's now their 4th quarter, headed into the 4th quarter. And the leadership team said, well, actually, if we strive for this revenue goal, the current goal, we're not going to be able to fund the bonus program. So we need to increase the revenue goal. So what did they do? They increased the revenue goal 3 months before the end of the year. And that was it. No communication. You can imagine the uproar of people. It's like, you're just moving the target. Well, the CEO did actually send out great communication, receive some good coaching. From my understanding, I'm sort of removed from the story, but sent out great communication. And the team, well, some people just didn't like it. They understood it. They understood that, hey, if we have a revenue target of, let's say, $100, we can't fund the bonus program. It's just simple as that. Things have changed throughout the year, and now we're kind of down to the wire. We want to fund the bonus program, but we believe that we can hit this revenue target, and here's the plan in order to achieve the revenue target. So setting that expectation, if you just did a hard stop of like, hey, we're going to increase from $100 to $200, everyone's good? Good. But hey, we're going to increase, here's the why, and here's also the plan, here's the how. So that kind of leads me into that next question, Casey. I'd love to hear your perspective on that. How do we set expectations? It's easy to say we need to set expectations. Why? Like your pilot story. I love it, right? You're fired up. You're like, oh, I'm going to be home early. You ended up not being home early or wherever you're going to go because there's no communication. So how do we do it? Like, why are we still talking about this many years into business and we still struggle with setting expectations?
I think people get going way too fast. I think complacency is a silent killer. And so we get bad habits that form. But as I think about, I've wired my brain to think this way. And so chapter 1, I talk about in my book is the power of the golden rule. Treat people the way we want to be treated, right? It was really important when we were 5, 6 years old. But when we get into these corporate jobs, it's okay to just be an a-hole to people. We can say certain things. We can just do this, do that. I'm the boss. They should respect me. In the end, that's not how it works. And so for me, setting expectations is just slowing down to ask yourself, okay, how would I want to be communicated in this? How would I want my boss to share if my comp plan changed? How would I want me for my mental health to know that, hey, if I'm excited about taking on a new role, or if maybe I'm managing, 2 accounts that have $300 million in revenue, but now I'm going to get asked to go over 2 new accounts, but it's $15 million in revenue. Is my ego down the way? Is there clarity why? Or is it say, hey, Tim, we're going to move you over to these new accounts because 1, you're our best salesperson. B, you're our best leader. C, we believe in you more than anybody. And if there's anybody in the company that's going to go take this next level, it's you, and we believe in you, right? Now my ego is filled. I have clarity. My confidence is up versus just, okay, you're off these 2 accounts. You're going to go to there. And we get going so fast because of, I got notifications on my earrings, my nose ring, my eye ring, my tennis shoelace, my tongue in my shoe, my underwear, and they're all connected to Wi-Fi. And I'm just buzzing nonstop where I'm going versus slow down. That's why I wrote a chapter about listening. But when we set expectations, it just removes the lack of clarity in communication. It removes any unsaid, unfelt, unneeded, unnecessary drama that we don't need. I think if we really look back on challenges you've had, relationships internally and externally, a lot of it comes down to expectations.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've said it a few times on podcasts, and I'm a firm believer in this, is when we don't communicate clearly, if we just communicate that expectation or the goal or the outcome, and that's it, we as humans make up our own narrative. We fill in the gaps. Casey, I know you're on a $300 million account. We're going to just move you to a $15 million account. Well, what's going to go through your head, right? You suck. Am I going to get fired? Hey, Casey, can you make sure all your paperwork is up to date, all your CRM stuff is up to date, and make sure it's done by the end of the day tomorrow, and then make sure you stop in my office, but bring your laptop. It's like, what's going on, right? But instead, it's like, hey, bring your laptop because, we've got a new one for you, and this one, your old one's is about to, we want to make sure you've got the best equipment out there and it's performing well, because I understand your computer's not performing well, and so that's why we just want to make sure everything is up to date and it's backed up to the cloud. Right? It's just setting that expectation. It's hey, we're going to change a sales goal. Oh, by the way, I'm going on vacation, so good luck. Right? If we don't fill in the gaps, we're going to make up our own narrative, and that's part of setting expectation.
Exactly. I think you nailed it. If we just slow down a little bit and realize as leaders, what is our goal? Like truly, what's our goal? Is our goal to have people that come to work frustrated and mad at us? And is our goal that we want to be in jobs where we're just constantly babysitting, not being really sarcastic? No. Our job is, because when it's done right and done well and everything's communicated clearly, people have clarity in their job, they're excited about what they're doing. Your job as a leader is the easiest job on the planet. The plane's flying itself.
Yeah. Just think of, if somebody's listening and wondering why they're struggling with their team or their team's not listening to them. And, I can't diagnose it over a podcast, but have you set clear expectations? What's the language you're using around that? Casey, I expect you to perform so we can hit our sales goal. Is that setting expectation? No. How else would you say that, Casey?
Well, you made me think of something real quick for answer. Like, think about it if you're listening now and there's leaders like, shoot, I'm not doing any of this stuff. Back to the equation, vulnerability. What a powerful gift. You can go back to your team and say, hey, I heard a couple bald guys on a podcast. And sorry, Tim, air you out there, buddy.
I got a little bit of fuzz up there still. Come on. But
I got none. And we said, hey, as I was thinking about the last quarter, team, I don't know how well I've done a good job of setting expectations for you. Tell me 2 areas I could do a better job of setting expectations to make you and the team excited about coming to work today. And then just shut up and see what they say. And then once you get one thing, maybe we'll say, great, tell me more about that, right? Because as you as a leader, if you're using vulnerability to understand maybe where your gaps are in setting expectations, you're going to give them, if you're a VP to your managing director level 2, whatever, you're going to give them tools and say, wow, my leader, he or she just showed vulnerability, showed humility that he or she doesn't have all the answers. They're really diagnosing how we can do a better job of setting expectations, asking questions. Maybe I could do the same thing with my team. And all of a sudden that starts filtrating throughout the organization and people are really buying in to these characteristics that what I am clear as day. I know they work because I've seen it for 46 years of life on Earth, in sports and volunteer organizations and business and marriages. My marriage, if my wife knows where I am at all times, life's pretty good. If I don't show up for 3 days, where the hell were you been? Oh, I was doing this, doing that. Well, hey, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, we do it in our personal lives with our partners, with our kids. Even as this morning or every morning, I go for a walk and kids are going, well, where are you going? Well, I'm going to go for a walk and then I got to sit down and prep for a podcast. Okay, so you can't walk me to school today. Like, not today. I've got something. Okay. If I just left out the door, I know I'm going to get a text and going, well, where did you go? The kids are asking for you. So why wouldn't we do that in the workplace? Why wouldn't we say, hey, I'm taking off this afternoon versus just unplugging? Even if you've got no work hours or you're fully remote, you work whenever, wherever, setting that expectation, but also as leaders, clearly communicating what is important to be set. Like, hey, I expect you to be at your desk for 3 hours at a time, then you're allowed to stand, and then no, don't go to that level. And, I expect everyone to check in every single day because I know we're fully remote. We're work whenever, wherever. Just drop me a Slack. Even if I'm sleeping, I just, want to know that you're safe and you're up and at it, and I trust you, and let's get work done. It's as simple as that.
I think too, it made me think of something, Tim. I think when we slow down to maybe ask our team what's important to them from an expectation management perspective, I'm not saying you're going to give we want rainbows and ponies and we want to coddle everybody. But sometimes as leaders, we get going too fast and we don't realize what's important. We know it's important to us, but maybe it's not as important to our teams. And maybe if there's something that's, you didn't even think of because you're going too fast, we slow down, we understand like, now all of a sudden you've given us maybe a set of employees clarity that they didn't know was there and you didn't know was there. But because of you just slowed down to asking them maybe 1 or 2 additional questions, made sure that you understand for this, this set of employees that expectation was clear for them. All of a sudden, maybe that increases productivity. It reduces employee churn. You get new results you didn't even think was possible just by putting a little attention to these words we're talking about today.
Yeah, I'm curious, again, how many people are listening. And if you're a leader leading maybe an HR team, or you're leading a group of people, or maybe you're an individual contributor and you've had a leader say this to you. I'm going to give a silly example. Oh, thanks for the presentation. Wish it was in the corporate template, not just a generic template. And then walk away. Like, how passive is that? I'm guilty of it. I think, my wife, my partner may or may not have accused me of that quite recently. It's like, quit being passive, just give it to me straight. And which means set the expectation. And yeah.
But I was going to say, I think sometimes, sarcasm coming, we think that like you're a mind reader and you're inside my brain, but I was thinking about that. No, I didn't. I did not know anything about it because you didn't tell me. And if I was a mind reader, I'd be guessing people's weight at the fair. Like, I don't know what you're thinking unless you tell me what you're thinking. And you have A players, B players, C players in companies, right? And so if the A players sometimes don't slow down to kind of bring the people up the ladder, you're part of the problem.
Mm-hmm. And so often we forget, and I have forgotten, you're onboarding somebody. We just recorded a podcast about onboarding recently, and you're onboarding somebody and you miss out the details. And then you send this person off into the wild to get their work done. And, maybe in the context of sales, you read their sales report and it's just rubbish. Well, might have worked at their old organization, but it doesn't work for you. So then you call them in and say, well, this isn't very good. Well, how am I supposed to know? Like, I can't read your mind. But as a contributor, it's, if that continues on for 3 months or even 3 weeks or, time and time again, maybe there's a performance problem or something else, but, take a pause. And I think that's a big theme that I get from you, Casey, is take that pause, slow down.
I say silence is your friend. So I'll give one of the tips I teach salespeople. Well, and also it's actually been for leadership too, but on Zoom. So sometimes, I can't build relationships in a Zoom remote role. It's impossible. Okay, that's a story you're telling yourself. That's a victim mindset. Or we tell ourselves, someone's going to create relationships via virtually. Why not me? Right? Now we're at least speaking truth into the potential day. So back to silence. If I tap my finger 3 times on my hand or my leg, the person on Zoom or Teams or any other virtual is not going to see it. They're not going to hear it. So if we want to ask a great question to develop a new relationship, to have a great conversation, to impact somebody, that gets thrown away by keep talking. So ask a question, tap your arm 3 times, and don't speak until those 3 taps are done. It might feel like an eternity because you're used to talking as fast as an auctioneer. But when we slow down to say, okay, tell me about how I've done a good job of setting expectations, Mr. and Mrs. Team, 2001, 2002, 2003. Let it sit in. Because a lot of times I think leaders relating to expectations, they also fall into what I call smartest in the room syndrome, where they love talking. They love telling the team all the answers and tell. That's the wrong way to do it. The best leaders ask great questions. Even when someone wants to get help, they'll say, great. Hey, good question. Tell me what you think. Hey, take a guess. We believe we hired you for a reason. Come on, let's think through this together. Create the space, right? At least they want to, try. But if we as leaders are sitting up on top of our pedestal and just, conducting the band without letting them ask questions throughout the performance, we're not letting them improve.
Slow down, allow space for questions, ask powerful questions, ask good questions. I just recorded a podcast with a phenomenal leadership coach, and we talked about powerful questions. Tell me more. I know that's something that you and I have talked about as well, is the acronym you use, the TED acronym. Why don't you share that with us a minute? And because I think it's powerful, and it's also used with setting expectations.
TED is gold. I learned TED from a gentleman by the name of John Kaplan, who was a client of mine in my corporate world. And he does, his company does great work for teams. But I'm sure he learned it from someone else. But TED is a framework that's not just for business, it's for life. And it stands for tell me, explain, describe. And the way that usually this sticks, I'll kind of, for the parents out there listening, I think if this hopefully will resonate with you. So if your son or daughter comes home from school and you say, hey, bud, how was school? Good. What'd you do? Not much. Did you have fun? Yep. Well, what do you do? Nothing. I mean, those are all bad questions, right? And so if I ask bad questions, why should I expect good results? Just like in business and life and anything. Hey, Ryder, that's my son's name. Ryder, you keep telling me about geometry or algebra. You don't like it. Tell me one reason that would make it better. Describe a time where you laughed with your buddies today. If you could do anything besides school today, explain what that would look like. And once you get something, you say, oh, wow, tell me more about that. Tim, the number of times I've said, tell me more about that, I've yet to have someone say, Casey, Go F yourself. I don't want to tell you more about that. I'm done talking. Every time. And now hopefully I didn't just jinx myself, but every time they keep talking because we're making it about them. Now you have to have genuine interest. You can't just like, tell me more about that and be Norio Gato, Mr. Roboto. But if you have a genuine interest in people and you're curious, and TED takes practice. It might sound easy, but I would be willing to bet people say, can you tell me more about that? No, I didn't say, can you? Tell me or explain or describe and practice on your family. And then when you use that with your teams, whether it's if you're a sales leader, whether you're customer facing, whether you're internally, where you have to build relationships internally, TED is such a great way to get to the truth and get real meat on the table about what we're going to be talking about. And it's funny, I have clients that I'm implementing that and teaching that, and because I know it works.
It's such a powerful framework. And I just think it from an expectation setting. It's I had a leader once who, Tim, tell me about the systems you've implemented. I was leading sales operations at a tech company, and we implemented new ERP system, CRM system, and I was co-leading the implementation. So I described what we did and all the new processes. And the leader said, that sounds great. Scrap it, and you're going to do it my way. And then walked away. And I was like, okay, I guess this isn't going to go well. And the expectations weren't set. My response, I wish I would have met you. Like,
I hope that person's unemployed.
I don't know. I ended up leaving the organization, but it struck me, and I think a good response would have been on my part tell me more about that. Versus, oh no, we're not going to do it your way. We're going to keep doing it our way, which, then led into that's a whole other conversation for another day, but tell me more about that. Okay. Describe that a little bit.
Yeah. Or how about tell me 2 things I could have done differently that would have made a better outcome for you?
Yeah. And so if we set expectations of just do it my way, and maybe you have a leader like that, or maybe you as a leader, if you've said that, hopefully you're squirming in your seat. You're not setting expectations. If anything, you might be creating this culture of fear and maybe quiet quitters. You're creating a place of stagnant growth versus that growth mindset. So set that expectations. Hey, I'm coming in as a new leader. Maybe you're started a new role. You've got current systems. We are now going to be changing systems. And here's the reasons why. Here's what's currently working, but here's what's not working well. And here's the massive opportunity we have if we change some of our processes in order to grow. Now the expectation's set. Now you can start asking questions. Well, what do you love about our current system? What are some of the flaws? Now you're slowing down and asking the good questions versus just jumping in with 2 feet of going like, no, you're going to do it my way. Setting expectations, man, it's so powerful. So Casey, as we look to wrap up, aside from, I like to ask my guests, what's one thing that they can do today around this topic? And aside from picking up your book and reading it, what is one thing that they can do to practice, like practically practice setting expectations?
I think I kind of maybe answered it already, but I'll mention it again. I think it's important if this is resonating with you, go to whether it's your husband, your wife, your kids, your team, your leader, and just ask them and be okay with the answers. Say, tell me 2 things I can do a better job of setting expectations to make our culture better. I think simple as that, and be okay with what they're going to tell you. And once you understand that and you're self-aware to take maybe some coaching or some feedback that we're not perfect, and the sooner that you embrace that we're all replaceable, it's such a freeing feeling in any job you have. I don't mean that negative. I just mean that, like most people aren't going to leave a company and they're going to go out of business the next minute, right? So to practice it, just ask the question and use the TED framework and find out what they say. And then, like Tim talked about earlier, use the phrase, tell me more. And then, if it's something that's important to you, maybe you make this a part of your one-on-one with your boss or your team, your up level, down level, and you say, hey, tell me how I'm doing with setting expectations. It's a goal of mine. I'm committing to get better at it. Tell me, have you seen a change in my behavior, the way I show up? Keep diving in on it.
It's powerful, Casey. It takes practice, and it takes that vulnerability to ask the questions. It's easy to give a framework and say, okay, here's a framework, go at it. But I love how you followed up with right back to what we talked about at the beginning about being a leader. And it's that formula, which includes vulnerability. In order to be better leaders and better contributors is vulnerability. Tell me how I can do better. I want to grow in this. Tell me something. If we don't ask and be prepared for the feedback, and a good buddy of mine said, feedback is a gift. Some gifts we accept, some gifts we just want to return to the store, get a gift receipt and return to the store. It's a gift. And what we do with that gift is just as important as asking for that feedback. Sorry, you were going to say something.
I was going to say what I've found too, that I got taught this, and I teach a lot of my clients I work with, is when you put a number in front of the question you're going to ask, I don't know why, I'm not a neuroscience doctor, but like it makes the brain give the data. So if I said, hey, Tim, how's your day? Great. Hey, Tim, tell me one thing about your day that makes you happy today. Now you go into story versus I can't give you the one word answer. I mean, that's to me that I practice the stuff I'm telling that we're talking about today. I practice this stuff every day. And you said the word practice, which is one of my favorite words and one of the most underused words and skills that no one does. And we expect our kids to go to practice band, practice theater, practice sports. But when we get in our jobs, we just wing it. And we wonder why we don't have success.
It's practice. And practice means you're going to fail. I mean, you played college football, right? You had to practice. If you didn't practice, you wouldn't have played college football. Your son, you were mentioning to me that he plays golf and on the high school team. It takes practice. And, my little 5-year-old is learning piano. She's got to practice. Some days she loves it, some days she hates it, but she's got to practice. And as leaders, we got to practice our craft. And how do you get better is, well, you ask for feedback. I mean, that's a whole big conversation that we could get into, but it all ties in with setting expectations. So Casey, thanks for joining me today. It's a true honor, true pleasure to have you on. For those who are listening, let us know how we can get a hold of you. What's the best way to reach you?
Best way is, I think, LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. People can also go to my website, which is just caseyjacox.com. All the links are /book or /podcast or /coaching. They can learn a lot about me. There's some testimonials of people who've already worked with me. There's some speaking examples if people find that intriguing as well. But I love to connect. I'm super curious. Most LinkedIn connections I do accept. My only advice is put a little note into the thing. Don't just say connect. Tell me why. Right? I'm much more intrigued to connect. And actually, long story short, let's go back to what you said in the beginning. So Tim said we serendipitously connect. So Tim's podcast, the podcast we're on, everybody, People Managing People, was the first podcast that I selected the monetization feature of Buzzsprout. Shout out to Buzzsprout. Hope you guys appreciate the love we're giving you today. And I was like, oh, this guy sounds pretty cool. Oh, this podcast sounds like something I like to learn more about. And that's how it happened. So I think that was kind of a cool way that how you started and how we're going to end it, just by, it took curiosity on both our sides.
Mm-hmm. Curiosity to dive in and get to know each other's business. And there's obviously some alignment there. And again, for those who are listening, pick up a copy of Casey's book, Win the Relationship, Not the Deal. We will put the links in the show notes. And as always, I'm always looking to get better at my craft as a podcast host, as well as looking for new topics and things that you want to hear. So if you have feedback for me, please send an email to tim@peoplemanagingpeople.com. I always love to hear and read your emails, and I respond to everything. Also, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And again, if you do love what you hear, please like and subscribe to the podcast and share it out. And with that, thanks again, Casey, for coming on, and thanks to those who are listening.